What's up everyone, this is SkyTech Freak and today we'll be doing an unboxing of the Oneplus Nord 2. So this is actually the successor to the Oneplus Nord, which was released last year and quite a popular device in India at least. And the Oneplus Nord brand is supposed to be their cheaper or more affordable budget line. Well, not budget, their phones never really fall into the low smartphone price segment, but they're always cheaper than their flagships, which, as I'm sure you guys have noticed, have been creeping higher and higher into the premium smartphone market with their Pro, and even now their non-Pro but flagship models or flagship OnePlus line has started to get more and more expensive. So this is the OnePlus Nord 2. I have the 12 GB RAM and 256 GB storage unit over here. There's also a 128 GB storage and 8 GB RAM version, which I think is for 33,000 or 32,000, but I chose to go for the little bit more expensive one, not because I really thought I'd need the 12 GB of RAM. The RAM I feel like will be sufficient. 8 GB is more than enough, but the 256 GB of storage would be important because if you plan on having these phones for a long time, for let's say 1, 2 or maybe 3 years, you want to have that storage headroom, just because there isn't any expandable storage in these smartphones anymore. That's one of the main features that have been cut out of smartphones recently, just like the 3.5mm headphone jack, which is another thing that's not really on this device. I'm having a little bit of difficulty pulling this out. There we go. So we managed to get the plastic off of it. I bought this through Amazon, but you can buy this from OnePlus's official site as well. And I'm not sure if Flipkart has it. It used to have some of the earlier Nord models, like the Nord 1, and then there was the Nord CE, which also launched. Anyways, I have the black version here, even though this does come in a sort of like aqua blue or a teal-ish color. So the first thing we have once you take off that box that says Nord, Nord, Nord is of course the device, and it's properly packaged around in this protective film. I'm not sure if there's a pre-applied screen protector. We'll get into that as well. This is actually a much lighter gray than I was expecting it to be. I thought it would be closer to black or at least dark gray. This is very light. When I actually saw this camera cutout, I thought maybe they've accidentally sent me the teal color. But we'll pull this out now from its protective film and let's take a look at the device. So I'm just going to hide that IMEI information from the back. As you can see, these are the dual cameras. The main camera is the Sony IMX sensor. We have an ultra-wide camera, and then we have a monochrome sensor. So it's not the useless sort of macro 2-megapixel lens that we used to get in cameras that just wanted to say they have a third camera for the sake of it. But this monochrome lens also doesn't really serve much of a purpose. So it still feels like they've just sort of shoehorned a third camera in just to say that it's a triple camera setup and to make it look sort of more fancy. So this is something that wasn't there in the Nord line before that. This is OnePlus's famous alert slider. So you can have it on vibrate, silent, do not disturb. You can set these up, or you can have it on ring. Then on the right side, so that's on the right side. We also have the power button on the right side, and the volume rocker is actually on the left side, and it sits sort of between the profile slider and the power button on the right. Then in the front, of course, we have a 6.43-inch screen, and that's another thing that I like about this. They didn't make this phone like too big. I mean, I use an S21 just because of how small it is. I was really intrigued by the Zenfone 8 because they just don't make like decent compact phones anymore. Not that 6.43 is compact by any means, but it's smaller than any of the other OnePlus phones, including the OnePlus 9R, which is newly come out with the new Snapdragon processor. This one has the Dimensity 1200 chip. So let's run through the specifications again. I've already told you this is the 12 GB RAM and 256 storage unit. That's the 6.43-inch display. It's an AMOLED display with 90 Hz refresh rate, just like the original Nord. It doesn't have a 120 Hz refresh rate screen. It only has 90 Hz, so that's an upgrade that they didn't make. I've also heard that the screen is a little bit dimmer than the flagship OnePlus line, so we'll have to take a look at that. So those are some of the specs, and when it comes to the chipset, this runs the Dimensity 1200 chip. Now, there's a lot of reports that they've underclocked this chip, or that it doesn't perform as well as it does on other phones on the Nord 2. So we'll have to give that a shot as well, maybe in a future review. Dimensity 1200 chip is supposed to be an excellent performer. It's much cheaper than the Snapdragon alternatives, and it keeps up with at least last year's top flagship line Snapdragon 870 and 875 chipsets, and it's not noticeably slower in everyday tasks than the Snapdragon 888, which is the current flagship right now. So we looked at the right and the left. Let's look at the bottom now. As you can see, you have the Type-C charging port, and you do get a charger in the box. When you get to the rest of the unboxing, you will notice that. And then of course there's the SIM tray. There is no micro SD card, I said, so that'll only open up the SIM. This is the Nord 2 5G, so it does support 5G connectivity for whenever that becomes reliable and more useful. On the top we have a mic, At the bottom, we also have a mic next to the SIM card tray. This is actually a stereo speaker setup. So we have one speaker firing down from here, and then it uses the earpiece speaker up here as well to give you that stereo sort of effect. And then the back, as you know, is pretty plain. It doesn't have wireless charging, so that's one thing that I was not too fond of about the Nord 2. I find wireless charging to be extremely convenient. So, you know, here are some of the wireless buds that I have that do support wireless charging. And then you put on this OnePlus Nord and it doesn't really say anything. Let's now turn on the OnePlus Nord, and while it's booting up, we can go to the rest of the stuff in the box. So one thing I wanted to know about this phone is about the haptics, because the first Nord didn't have the best haptic sensor. The vibration was kind of choppy and sluggish, and it felt kind of like artificial. Whereas if you have these premium phones like the OnePlus Pro line, even the OnePlus line, the haptic sensor is really good. They give you a tight vibration. We take out this, which is where the phone is seated, and then I'm sure this is all your warranty information, etc. So we don't need to get into that. There is a case provided, so I guess inside of that where you have the warranty information, this is the case. Oh, and I didn't expect this. Usually OnePlus phones that come with a case are just a plain transparent case, and those are the ones you never really want to use because they don't look that great. This one has a bit of a pattern as well, so let's throw our phone in there and see what that looks like. Again, like I said, not a huge fan. It sort of makes it look like a jelly bean, if that makes any sense. I guess that's a cool pattern, at least. I mean, it's better than nothing. I was saying that I wasn't sure if this has a pre-applied film on it. It does have a pre-applied plastic film on the screen. And then of course we have the 65 watt warp charger, and I believe this actually runs on power delivery standard. So I'm not sure if this is OnePlus's proprietary charging, like warp charging. Initially warp charging used to be proprietary, but I feel like it now conforms to the power delivery standard, which is also what Samsung and all use. Of course, none of those phones charge as quickly. It doesn't say that it conforms to it, so it's probably still proprietary. But Samsung phones, the fastest they can charge, I think, is 25 watts, and this is a 65 watt charger for the same battery capacity, which I believe is 4500 milliamp hours. And then of course we have OnePlus's classic red cable, and this is a really funny sort of contrast, right? Because this box is blue, and the popular, at least the more popular color for the Nord 2 is also that teal color, but then you'll still have that red cable. Always a welcome, iconic part of the brand, so I guess they don't want to move away from that, which makes perfect sense. And I'm sure in this we also have the SIM card removal tool, which we will need if we have to put our SIM in. Yeah. Oh wow, so that's a really fun sort of manual, I guess. Tells you the whole team involved in sort of putting this together. And OnePlus stickers. I didn't know that they ever did this, but there's some OnePlus and Nord stickers. This is very like Razer or like gaming PC hardware thing to do, to throw in stickers with your hardware. There's a membership card. This is a sort of letter, so you can pause here if you really want to read that letter from the Nord team, but it's a nice touch, and it actually gives you the names of everyone involved in, I think, bringing this phone to the market. Anyways, I'm going to put this away, and we're just going to set this up really quickly. I can do that off screen and come back. So I finally have the phone all set up and ready in the home screen. I mentioned earlier that I was wondering what the haptic feedback would be like, and this is a really good haptic sensor. I'm not sure if it's really the strongest one that I've had, because the haptics were feeling sort of muted, but it is a really tight and good sensation, so you don't have to worry about it feeling choppy or just like an empty cardboard box shaking. It actually feels nice and tight and responsive as a haptic sensor. I'm sure we can go into settings and make it more responsive, so that's not an issue. Let's also take a look at this slider. So right now, if you have it all the way down, it's on ring. You move it up, it goes to vibrate, and you move it all the way up and it'll go to silent. So in silent you won't hear anything. In vibrate, the phone will vibrate, and then of course you have a ring where you can hear all your notifications, and of course you can set up these profiles too, so a ring can only ring for phone calls and not sort of make any noise to notifications, etc. That's usually how I set mine up. One thing I hadn't mentioned earlier was that OnePlus has announced they are merging officially with Oppo, and we always knew that OnePlus and Oppo were under the same parent brand of BBK Electronics, but Oxygen OS and Oppo's Color OS were two separate, distinct sort of skins on Android, two separate operating system takes on Android, but now they've sort of merged, and what we're starting to see with the Nord 2 and moving forward with all their other devices, with as soon as they start getting major Android updates or major system updates, is that Oxygen OS for OnePlus and Color OS for Oppo are going to be merged as well. So it's going to be under Color OS, and Color OS is a good skin, but of course Oxygen OS was loved by all because it was supposed to be like vanilla Android but with extra features, whereas Color OS of course changes things around. And moving forward with the Nord 2 and any other phones of the OnePlus brand that are going to get major Android or system updates, they will also start coming on to Color OS. But they're still going to keep the design language the same. So OnePlus is still going to have sort of an Oxygen OS skin on top of Color OS. And I think even now, if you go into system settings, which we will do right now, you can see it says Oxygen OS version, even though we do know that it's running on Color OS. It's because OnePlus doesn't sort of want to admit it that openly. It's made a lot of people mad that OnePlus and Oppo are merging, but what they're going to do is keep calling this theme on top of ColorOS, which is already a skin on top of Android OS. They're going to call this skin or this theme of ColorOS Oxygen OS. Then we're going to have ColorOS, which is going to be the base skin. So I will be doing like a more sort of in-depth review after about a week, 10 days with the phone. And I'll be able to tell you all the similarities with ColorOS and Oxygen OS, because this is still at the end of the day, like I explained, a ColorOS phone now with just Oxygen OS as the skin on top of it, and of course the baked in extra features of OnePlus. But as I was saying, I'll be delving into how much that has actually affected OnePlus. We can take a quick look at the cameras right now. So agree and continue while using the app, and we can allow it to do whatever it wants because it's a stock app. So we want to take a quick photo of that. That was a really quick shutter button. Let's take a look at the selfie camera now. Turning back. Colors look really good on the blue over here, so no complaints with the camera here, but of course this is ideal lighting conditions. So we're gonna have to look more closely at the camera in that review. I am starting to see why people are saying that the screen is maybe a little too dim. Of course, it's only at half brightness now, but at half brightness, this is not really the sort of brightness you expect to have. At full brightness also, it's actually, yeah, it is dim for a full brightness phone. But as you can see, this is still running at that 90 Hertz smooth display, so I'm liking that for sure. There is a software update, so we will look at that when I do my in-depth review. It'll of course be with the most updated software version at the time. But that's all for now. I'm looking forward to getting into that full review, using this phone for a while, and then letting you know what my final thoughts or my initial review thoughts are. This was just a simple unboxing. I wanted to cover some of the important things that people are talking about with the Nord 2. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I hope you're looking forward to in-depth review after sort of a week, 10 days. And I will see you guys in the next video. If you like the video, please like it and subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you.